Welcome to the JP Podcast. I'm your host, John.
I'm your co-host, Tom.
And today we have comedian Angel Isaac. Let's get started. Okay, welcome back. We are here with Angel, and this is going to be a little bit of a different podcast. I'm going to have Tom doing the majority of it because this was actually Tom's idea. I'm actually excited because you're somewhat of a up-and-coming celebrity. So if you hit it big, I can go back and say, hey, I knew him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Look at this.
Go ahead, Tom. Tell me a little bit.
So this
about
is Angel. I know we talked a little bit on the Zoom podcast where we did the recap/breakdown about what our interests are and how we got started in podcasts. Mine was all comedian-related podcasts that I enjoy watching. Angel is a guy that I've known for decades now. So as soon as I thought of this is the first person I thought of to get on the podcast and get him out there. So Angel, we appreciate you coming.
I appreciate the invite.
Just tell us a little bit about you. Tell us how long you've been in the comedic world or the stand-up comedy world and how you got started.
Yeah, this is my ninth year.
Wow.
Ninth year in doing stand-up, and I got to tour and do shows in New York, Canada, LA, Chicago, all over Ohio. So it's really cool to see these things and have it actually be paid for most of the time. So the clubs normally put me up in a hotel. If not, then either I pay for the hotel or I sleep in the car.
Wow.
So when was your first one? When was your first show?
Man, my first road show was actually in Athens, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And I had no idea about Athens. Like, I knew there was a college down there and that was about it. But that place, man, those people are just like very free-spirited. I mean, if you ever see like a hippie van and the girls just twirling their scarves and stuff like that, yeah,
They're heading to Athens.
That's happening in Athens, yeah. So it was kind of cool. I mean, they were receptive. I was nervous being my first road show, and it went over really well. They had the restaurant actually closed, and they had a room off to the side where they hosted a comedy show. So if you wanted to watch comedy, you can. If you want to enjoy some food and some liquor, you can just go on the other side, just have the regular restaurant feel. But so had that not closed, they'd still be doing comedy.
Nice.
Well, let's go back even further before we get to it. Well, we already went to his first show, but I want to know what got you into it. The beginnings. Were you always the funny kid, and how did that all start out? What brought you to this point?
Well, actually, I was always quiet.
Okay.
I was into science. Like, I was playing with bugs. I was digging. I was finding stones and like collecting to this day, I still do this as coins, foreign currencies, things that just you didn't see it all the time, and baseball cards. So one day I saw John Leguizamo's Mambo Mouth, and a lot of people aren't even familiar with that, and it's his first ever stand-up special. So it's the reason you don't see it. Like right now, you can buy a DVD set of Freaked, Alcoholic, it's 3-in-1, Ghetto Clown. It's like a 3-in-1 package. You can buy them all, but you won't be able to find Mambo Mouth because when I met him, he told me he doesn't have the rights to it.
Oh, wow.
So he said, if you ever make a special, have the rights to it. And I was just like, oh, okay. So, it's like if DreamWorks or Disney wanted me to do a special for them, it's theirs. Like, if I signed a contract, then it's like, hey, we want to put you on, we want this show to be for HBO or something, then it's theirs. It's theirs.
Yeah.
So I says, oh, okay. So there's ways to be your own artist, which is what Prince strongly, that whole debacle with Sony, and he's like, all right, keep the name Prince. I'm going to be the artist formerly known as. So that's what that happened with.
Yeah.
So, John Leguizamo I'm just watching this thing go down, and he's playing different characters, and I always had a love for drama somehow. Like, I just love movies, and this, before I really got into Star Wars, it was like the last Starfighter. I don't know if you remember that. This kid plays the arcade, and the arcade is actually a simulation of a flight, and he beats the highest score. And it's actually a simulation of how good can you fly our planes. So then the spaceship shows up and takes him. Like, hey, no, you're a pilot now. It's like, what? Like, no, that's not a game. That's just for Earth to see who can qualify. It is just really cool. You gotta watch. It's fun. It's so much fun. So just watching all these movies, it just really, I just love the whole acting thing. So I didn't know, I saw stand-up comedians. Like, I really love, like, Rodney Dangerfield, things of that nature. I watched, you just can't avoid it, comedy became real big, 80s, 90s. And so, of course, it's all over TV, internet. So I watched a few stand-up, but John Leguizamo took it, for me, he took it to the next level. I was probably in the 6th grade when I saw it. A very active kid, and my teacher in the 6th grade let me tell jokes in front of the class.
Wow.
So she's like, well, instead of me sending you to the principal because you're really hyper, tell jokes, behave for the rest of the class. And and to this day, I still, for her 50th birthday, I took her to the improv.
Wow,
like, to this day, I'm still connected with her.
It only takes that one person to open your eyes to something that you never knew.
Yeah, it's just really catering to that instead of like saying, oh, he's got ADHD, and everybody's always just wanting to throw pills and feeling like, oh, we resolved this. It's like, no, you didn't. Yeah, so leave the creativity to the children and just nurture it, harness it.
And you said that you had a lot from Rodney and obviously John Leguizamo and everything. Your comedy, now you said you got in it in 6th grade and everything. Did you start off telling like one-line jokes, or was it stories, or was it, set up punchline, or? Yeah,
it was just silly. In the 6th grade, I mean, there was a big gap, obviously, from 6th grade to 9 years ago, but, where nobody really knew improv, nobody really knew hilarities, and at least in my circle, nobody said, hey, you want to do comedy? Yeah, let's go, this place. But it was just silly stuff that I would write down and, make fun of, especially, like, math, and we were in school, so I'd make fun of the, like, other students, and tastefully, obviously she wouldn't let me go up there and like bully somebody, but it was just fun. We all agreed this is silly, this person, this and that. And
when you got that laugh, how'd that feel, that first classroom laugh, that first, were you hooked from there on?
It was just especially from like then and in adulthood, but I knew everybody in the class, so that was completely different going up in front of strangers. So I will say that. So I knew everyone, and everyone thought I was funny. I was making rap music that was funny. Yeah. I was like my own Weird Al Yankovic. So I took music and I just put my own words, and people loved it. I'd make sound effects. And to this day, one of my former students, she still, like, her husband that met me like so many times, but if she's there, she'll be like, babe, watch, do the broke down car. And to this day, she asks me, he's like, babe, he asked me the last 3 times that we met, like, we were together, like, it was so funny. So, but it's cool, like, I appreciate it. Like, I left, a memory for someone, a beautiful memory. It was just fun. Remember when we were kids and we did this and that, so it's just.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so you weren't getting in trouble for it. You were just, that sounds like something different. Like, there's always kids that tried to be funny and be the funny kid, but you sound a little bit different. You had a little more structure to it. You're writing things down. You're preparing your jokes. You know what I mean? That's tough,
especially at that age.
Yeah,
like it sounds like you already knew, but didn't know. You didn't know where you were going, but you knew what you enjoyed already, which is
right. I just wanted to make them laugh.
Yeah,
like that was it. Like I just wanted to make them laugh. And Dave Chappelle said it best, because I'm the baby boy in the family. I do have 2 younger sisters, but then I got like 5 older. Yeah. There's like my brother and then like 4 older sisters. Dave Chappelle is the youngest, and he talks about how we become the tension breakers. So we don't want our brothers and sisters fighting. So then we'll do something silly, and it just takes the attention off. You wore my shirt. I'm driving today, like I'm taking and you took the tension away and you made them laugh. So you just built that exception, and it just blew my mind when he said that. It just blew my. I said, "Wow, oh, okay." I subconsciously was a diplomat in my own home through comedy, so I guess doing that in school, it just took off. So
no stage fright or nothing like that. I mean, in the beginning.
Oh, to this day.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I mean, and another person is Chris Rock. He said no comedian is exempt from a bad night. And I mean, he just recently said that. Yeah, you're looking at a guy that's been doing this for decades, and he's amazing. The guy can sell out arenas.
Yeah.
And it's just true. You write something down, and in your head you're like, this is gonna kill, and then you say it, and it's like bum bum, and then you're like, oh my goodness. And you have other stuff that works, so you sort of, bring them back in. The audience loves him. Like, if you go to a club and you're well known, one of the hardest things for new comedians that they should really realize is that you have to be likable. The audience has to like you. They're not going to ride with you. So if you get that pass, you get the pass for almost the whole thing, and people will chuckle, and they're rooting for you.
And that's funny you say that, because that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Was one of the guys I watched. I'm an avid stand-up comedy fan. I watch as many specials, as many as I can, as even the older ones. And Anthony Jeselnik said that he went on stage and he was immediately hated, and he kept trying to get likable, but didn't realize until later that to do that he had to go to the dark side, because just the way he was and his presence, and he does a lot of the one line, the quick little, he's going to do the quick little jokes here, and he didn't build enough time, he wasn't talking stories, so there was no connection to so he had to learn to come out and turn it to make them like him, even though they didn't initially. And once he learned that, his career took off. That's when he took off.
He's very, like, you want to hear him, but you don't like him. He just has that. You're like, what else are you gonna say? Like, that is wrong. He's like that friend. Like, that is wrong. Like, all right, dude. Like, you're funny, but I can't introduce you to my family.
My mom wouldn't approve of him.
Right.
So going back to your first one, you get ready to get on stage. You went 9 years. 9 years ago. You're getting ready to go down to go on stage. What gave you the courage to actually do it, even if it's a local one, to do the first stand-up spot you had?
So before I even went to my first club, I wrote for a year, and I didn't know what I was getting into. Like, I knew what I wanted to do, but I wanted a better idea. So I took a class by Dave Schwensen. He's actually from Amherst. He moved to New York. He studied business, if I'm not mistaken, in Oberlin. He got in his van, told his parents, I'll see you soon, when he graduated, took off to New York, and ended up managing the Improv. Like, he managed the Improv. So he's here now. He's back. Started doing these classes at the Cleveland Improv. And he just gave me a better idea. Like, you're funny, but your jokes are everywhere. And I said, okay, what do you mean? He's like, well, you'll talk about your friends and your dog and your car. He's like, so you started, he really helped me learn about segues. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, okay, so you take people on a story, which is a good friend of mine, Steve Trevino, hilarious comedian. He's on Netflix as well. And he dropped his unrelatable, or relatable. He dropped his relatable special. And there's another comedian, and she dropped one called Relatable, so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
But Steve Trevino told me, he's like, just take him through a story. And I remember watching Steve Trevino, and I felt like I was there in the kitchen when his mom, how he talked about how she was like making him pancakes and holding up her boob, like everybody just remembers being a kid, and you look at your mom and she's cooking, and for you, and she's in her pajamas, and it's like, yeah, okay, like just this story that he talks about. Now he talks about his wife and his kids. So, but that whole premise, Dave really, you go to the Improv, you meet 3 Saturdays consecutively, and then the following Wednesday, which this Wednesday coming up, he's actually has the class goes in front of the Improv, and you invite your friends and your family, and that's nerve-wracking, because you don't think that, you think, strangers, I'm gonna make them laugh, and now it's like, oh yeah, I have family and friends that are gonna come to the show.
Yeah.
So to this day, I always have that edge, just before you go on stage. There is a doctor who does motivational speaking, and he says take 3 deep breaths before you do anything that makes you nervous. And he breaks down how people have anxiety and they feel like they're dying. Well, the reason is that they slow down their breathing. They're so into like what's gonna happen next? That they stop breathing. So in reality, you are dying.
Yeah.
You're blocking oxygen to your brain, and so you can't really think. Then you start freaking out, and you're freaking out because your body's like, breathe, dude, but you're not thinking that. So I just dawned on me like, oh, that's true. So you take 3 deep breaths, and you're cool. You still feel that, that little bit of fear or whatever you want to call it, just. But then you go out there, and the moment I start talking, it just goes away.
Yeah.
The moment I just start talking, it's just like, and then the shows that I do, the Laugh Out Lorraine shows, my DJ is just awesome. And I alternate different DJs. But our house DJ is Tony Fresh from Showpiece Entertainment. And he's nice enough to share his equipment, let another DJ come in. They usually bring their mixer or laptop. That's about it. But they don't have to carry anything else. And they, but Tony always just really just amplifies, like, why we're all here, demand the hour, and he just goes out. I keep telling him, like, dude, just bring it down a notch. But he's just like, give it up for it, and people just go crazy, and I just like,
and now you have to deliver.
Yeah, now I'm just like, oh, man. But it's great, like it's fun. Like I don't, I tell him, pull on the reins a little bit, but he does such a good job to edifying the show and myself. And
so one of my biggest questions that I have, because from the outside looking in, is I get to hear a lot of the stories, but they're the ones that intrigue me, are the ones of the up and coming comic starting off and having to drive 6 hours to do a 15-minute set, to turn around and drive 6 hours back and do all the hard work in the beginning that these people see their specials on Netflix and think that they're lucky they got a Netflix special, and they don't realize the work and the time that goes into it. You said you got to go to New York and all these other fun places. Do you have a story that really sticks out that was trying, that kind of pushed you?
Several. I don't even know where to start. Working, having a day job, I went to work and opened up the store, took care of my paperwork. It was a short shift. I shot to New York, so I timed it. Thank God there was. As you get older, you become wiser. So you're like, oh, traffic and this and that and detour and all this stuff. So it was a straight shot, no hiccups, and so I woke up at about 5:30 a.m. Went, opened up my store, did my job, left, went to New York, got out my car, got on stage, performed, got back in my car, drove 8 hours back just to open the store the next day.
Wow.
So that was a little bit of a rough one. Another time is my wife was in labor, and I was in New York, went up on stage, did the bit, came back, straight to the hospital, and my son came out. As soon as I walked in the room, that's when he decided to come out. And I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, perfect time.
It is just like perfect timing. So the bus, I was on my way to Chicago. Very bad storm, like ice. Nobody was on the road. It was that bad. They're like, hey, nobody should leave. So I contact the guy. I'm like, hey, is this show still going on? He's like, yes. So I get in my little 98 Honda Civic and I shoot to Chicago. And when I get there, the front, I mean, it was bulletproof. Like, it was just so full of ice. And it was just like, the only ones on the road was myself and the semis. And when I noticed that, the semis, I'm like, what am I doing? But I had a comfortable ride. I mean, that car is awesome. And it was just, the heat was working. I got there just fine, made it home, but it was just nerve-wracking. I'm like, oh my goodness, I just drove to Chicago, and all these buses were like, yeah, we're not running. That right there you'd think was a red flag, but made it there, got out. It wasn't too bad in Chicago. It was more like between here and Indiana. And then my father lives in Chicago, so he came with me, and that was the first time he watched me do stand-up.
Oh,
so
awesome.
That was pretty cool.
That makes it worth it, huh?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. You get to hang with him, and I got to hang with my dad. First club, first time he sees me. Beautiful club. The green rooms are nice.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that too much.
As I say, are the green rooms fun with I know the comedians sit around there and kind of poke fun at each other because that's what comedians do.
Yeah,
so.
if it ain't at each other, it's just we agree on something and we just start ripping on that, and then we look at each other like, you can use that bit. That's
I got that
bit.
one.
Yeah, like you said it, but can I use it? Like that's a bit.
One of the favorite things I also heard was my favorite comedian. I personally, my my personal favorite comedian right now out besides you is Tom Segura. I've been watching him for, literally years and years and years. Even back when he was doing his podcast in his apartment with his wife. But he's mentioned how their favorite thing, and it's almost every comedian he's come across has noticed it, their favorite thing is watching another comedian bomb, not because they want him to fail, but because they know that comedian's going to come off and they have a good time razzing each other about it, as long as that comedian understands that it happens to everyone. Yeah. Everyone's going to bomb once in a while.
I think it's the you too.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're not left out. Like I bombed, and then you're on the road and everybody's using their best bit. If you're working a club, that's one thing. But then like if you just do a drop in or an open mic and you see a comedian struggle and you're just like, oh, it's not just me, but when you're on the road, I'm sure Tom Segura is rubbing elbows with everyone. So if he sees Dave Chappelle and if he sees Bill Burr and if he sees these guys just really ripping and he's just like, it'll still get to you. I don't care if they're 16-year-old or 50-year-old. You're just gonna sit there like, oh, they're good. They're good. But we forget, we don't see that too. We don't see, obviously we know we have a better understanding, but we don't see Bill Burr on the road doing his struggling. Chris Rock on the road doing his struggling. David Spade, he just dropped a special. You don't see these guys struggling on the road, and it's just like, oh, they worked on that. I've said stuff and I just change one word and it hits. It's just amazing. It's like, really, that one word? It just makes a world of a difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's an art to it, you know what I mean? And that's how I look at comedians. You guys are artists, you're just painting laughs, So, I think it's pretty cool. And a lot of people don't know that, you got to put in your time, Even with this, we struggle, and we have fun, and everything like that. I have bad stage fright, so for me to be doing this, it's weird.
Yeah, it's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and but get up in front of people and everybody staring at me, I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? I'll avoid events.
Yeah.
Just because I know I'll be in the spotlight, you know what I mean? So,
Very similar. I actually have no issue. Like we said, this right here, I can do this all day long and feel comfortable. You put that same microphone on my hand on a stage in front of 20 people. And I'm like, all right, who wants it? Who wants the microphone?
Unless I'm mad. Now, if I'm mad, I'm going to say it to whoever. You know what I mean? But to get up there and
what
do that.
What about drinks? What if you get a few drinks?
I'll do anything, Debbie. You know what I mean? But it's like it's tough. It's tough to say I'm going to be a comedian, and I'm going to get up there, and and it's you got to have those down times because I think they actually build character. You know what I mean? And you learn from your mistakes. And are you really hard on yourself when you fail, or you just say put it past you, and I'm going to go hit him the next time? Or do you understand? There's like a science to it, like
Yeah, I tend to watch myself, and I'll play on my phone. Those Dorito commercials. The guy gave me a really good idea. He's like, use your phone if you don't have a boom mic, because I would put my camera in the back and record. And when I first did that, I got off stage and I'm like, they were laughing, but I can barely hear it because of the acoustics. And I'm like, I know they were laughing. So then I'm like, okay, I need something to catch audio. So I thought about getting a boom mic, and before I got one, I started using my phone, so I'd go on stage and put it on the table or the stool, whatever was nearby. So I put it down, and I'd record audio on my phone. So then I'd edit on my laptop. I take the audio, put it in, match it up just right, and it was perfect. And I was like, okay. So I watch myself, and I watch myself stumble words, and I'm like, man, that joke always hits. What happened? And I didn't realize it. I said it different, and I'm like, oh, and then I didn't have that same energy and enthusiasm like that. I'll watch two videos at once. Like I'll play this one and I'll play this one, and it'll be the same bit, and I'll just watch it and say, oh, okay, my face. Like I look tired in this one. I was like very monotone. Where this one I'm like, hey, and I'm just like coming at them like in their face.
Yeah.
So it really delivered different.
And you mentioned something just now that I didn't think about, and I've heard 100 times, especially recently with the COVID passing, is when we went to that, they went to bigger rooms, they went to taller ceilings, wider rooms with less people, or outdoor venues. And a lot of the comedians I would hear from, they would say that it actually kind of hinders them because they don't get that laugh back. They don't, when you got a tall ceiling, you don't think about that sound dissipating into the air, as opposed to a nice tight room where everybody's right there and it feels like it's rushing you, and you get the energy from those laughs, and you get the momentum going from those laughs. And I didn't even put two and two together. It makes 100%. If you don't hear them laughing, then you're up there thinking you're bombing.
Yep. I did an outside show, and I was warned by another comedian, so I would just host it. If anybody has like a festival going on and it's mostly musicians and that's what people are there to see, then I would keep it entertaining. So I'd ask them if they had like gift baskets that we can raffle off and stuff like that between, so we'd get that out the way. I'd sort of figure out, all right, this is the premise, this is where I'm going to go with this. Small prizes leading up to the big prizes. When people, if I can host, then I can have fun with people and go back and forth and talk to people. I'm not going to go out there and do a 20-minute bit because it just, the way the sound is. But I can win people by just hosting it and, give it up for the band and, put your name, and go back and forth and tastefully make fun of the audience. But comedy in the clubs, they would fit you. If you've been to a comedy club before, you probably didn't even know, but you were sitting real close to other people. And not just the people at your table, but they had other tables really close, because comedy's contagious. So somebody will laugh, and then you'll laugh because they're laughing. And that was a funny joke, but you sort of didn't want to laugh out loud. Like, how loud can I laugh? But then people are just laughing, and then you just let loose.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, okay. It's like a weird anxiety people have that they're in the audience, and maybe they're afraid they're going to get picked on if they laugh too loud. And I've had laughs where it was just, what's your name? Because I thought this lady was going to die. She's like, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, all right, like, okay, that's the last thing I need here. And there was another guy in Defiance, Ohio. I'll never forget him. Big guy. I mean, this guy was huge. And he's like, and everybody would laugh. As long as you made that guy laugh,
You had the room.
You had the room. That guy was massive. You couldn't miss him, and his laugh was like some kind of like Igor, like, and people were just laughing off that. So that's comedy's contagious. Laughter is contagious. So that's why they would do that.
Like you said, you were just talking about the crowd, and other than a stage fright, other than being up there with the microphone in hand by yourself, which I think I'm more afraid of than I am actually talking to people out front, is being by myself out there. The hecklers is the second thing I would, because it's hard to keep your emotions in check when someone starts critiquing you or saying something from a crowd. How do you handle that?
That's a spontaneous thing if you have it or not. Funny story is, who's the guy with the puppets? You guys remember him?
Yeah,
Jeff
Dunham.
Jeff Dunham, when he first started out with puppets, a midget jumped on stage, like on the table in front of him, and mooned him, and started shaking, and the whole audience just like laughed. And Jeff Dunham had nothing. He packed his stuff up, got off the stage, and this was like at a prominent club, if I'm not mistaken, the Improv, and he just started writing, like, all right, if anyone ever talks, and the guy's a brilliant writer, so he wrote and wrote, never having to deal with that again. But then there's like off the top of your head, that's more where I'm at. I don't expect people to say anything, but it has happened. In 9 years, I may have had 3.
Oh, okay.
And they'll never forget me.
Yeah.
They'll never forget
Nice.
me. I just went ham on them, and after the show, I was able to turn it before I got off stage, because part of the performance, I don't want the next comedian to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And at least I hope so. There was only one time they had to get kicked out because I thought they quiet for me once I was done. But then they challenged the next guy, and he just stopped. He's like telling the club owner, like, I'm not going to keep going until they're gone. And they came out and they said, sorry. So that can happen too. But, I've had them come up to me after the show and apologize and take a picture with me and say, they enjoyed the set. So I always try to win people. You never know where someone's coming from. I don't know if they had a bad day, so don't come here and try to bring it on me. And I still I let you know I'm boss, and then, but I care. So then I just try to draw them in that way.
Good stuff. Hey, as far as we just recently became friends. I didn't know who you were, no offense or anything like that. But
that's how it all started.
So I'm going through your pictures and I see you have some kids and all that. Having kids, has that changed your, you're starting to get into that sort of humor too? I actually want to go see one of your shows now, you know what I mean? But does that change your humor? Do you start doing kid humor or, how does that, does your humor change as you mature?
Well, I do have, so the majority of my set is clean.
Okay.
And that stems from my mom. So if my mom ever came to the show, which she's been to 2 of my shows, one at my room, at the Antlers Grand Ballroom, where we generally host Laugh Out Lorraine, and if we bring a bigger comedian, we do the Palace Theater, so that we got a 300-seater room compared to a 1,400-seater room, and she's come to both, so she was able to see me on both stages. So I do that to honor her, and then my son. So I talk about having kids, so some people can relate to that, but I also try to keep it clean because I have him, I have the kids growing up and. Corporate gigs, if you're clean, you can get a corporate gig. I found out from Dave Schwinson you can actually get paid more. And then I did a show. It was very weird. I was at the Toledo Funny Bones, one of my favorite clubs. I love the scenery. I love the smell. So I walk in there, and the manager, Nadia, she contacts me and says, "Hey, I have a kids show. I know you're clean. Can you come out this day?" And I said, "Sure, I'll be there." And it was like a Wednesday, Thursday. And I went out there, did a 7 o'clock show. And it was so weird to go on stage. And there was parents with 8, 10, 12-year-olds. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? But I did my bit. Like, I had to really ask myself, like, oh, is this good? Oh. And I was like, okay. So then I talked to the kids. I have kids. I know how to talk to kids. I talk to parents because I'm a parent. And they loved it. They just said, oh, he was so fun. He was just fun. And so I just talked to them and let them know. And then I told the kids, like, just a heads up, as you get older and you start coming to these comedy clubs, you don't talk, which they didn't. They were actually a better audience than most of the talk shows. But of course, there's no liquor.
Right.
That could have played a role in it. But that was fun.
Some of the things that I got to see, just learning as growing up, watching stand-up comedy, I was into, your Richard Pryor, all the heavy hitters and all that. And you think of clean, when you say clean comics, back in the day, people would think of, but now comedy has gotten so advanced and so far along that clean comics are definitely well sought after. One of my favorite clean comics is Nate Barghatzi, and I didn't even realize he was a clean comic until his second special when he mentioned he was a clean comic.
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, he's right. He doesn't cuss. He doesn't say anything vulgar. He doesn't. But here I am watching the second special without even knowing that, without even coming from Anthony Jeselnik, Tom Segura,
right.
All these. Sorry, coming from all these heavy hitters, all these hard, dark. These guys tend to push the boundaries a little bit. And now I'm watching Nate and not even realizing he's a clean comic. So the clean comedy thing, I think, is making a huge uprise right now. I really do feel that.
Yeah, you have a lot of guys like Brian Regan is one of them. Jim Gaffigan. So you have these guys, and I've heard Jim Gaffigan cuss. Yeah, but you don't see him that way, and there's just something about it. And comedy wasn't always that way. It blew up. Of course, Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. You look at those guys, and it's like, oh. And for some odd reason, it was more televised. So you would say, comedy's dirty, but it's like compared to who? Yeah. Like, have you watched like even like the Rat Pack? It was funny. Yeah. It's funny. I'm trying to think. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he had his own set out in if you went to Vegas, he was always he was one of the most older, very raunchy, but not in the like he didn't care about, like, for example, there was he looks at this guy, he's like, "Hey, you Japanese?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, my dad's still looking for you." And he's just having so much fun. He was just an older guy, and I'm kicking myself in the butt, and I remember his name, but he was just a short, older white guy, and he just was very, so he was like that. But it was, if you watch those older comedies, no one was really swearing then. Yeah. So you have the majority, if you ask me, the majority of comedians. Look at Rodney Dangerfield. They weren't swearing. Of course, you would get guys that would, Red Fox and stuff like that nature. And if you enjoyed it, they're funny. Bill Burr is one of my favorite today. You don't even hear it when he does it.
Yeah.
You don't even hear it. I had a audience ask me, and they would always, "Oh, you're a comedian. Oh, I heard you do stand up." Yeah, and I can tell the ones that were like churchgoers, and they're like, "Do you cuss?" And I'm like, just come to the show. Like just tell me. And then I had one guy. He's like, I'm a pastor at a church. You guys serve liquor there. And I go, that's ironic because I saw you in Applebee's.
Yeah.
Like people don't think there's a big bar. They have one of the biggest bars out of almost most restaurants that swing around. But you know what? He just thought about it. He was like, I'll see you at your show. I'll see you. You don't have to drink. Like, what makes you think we're gonna just like? Nope, you got to drink because you're here. Like, it doesn't.
One of the things I also was interested and curious about is coming up when you don't want to mimic anyone, but it tends to when you start watching people and you know other comedians talk about they tend to not mimic, but you get your style as you're growing up and coming up through. You just said you talked to a few people. You had a few people. Is there someone specific other than John Leguizamo? Is that would that be your number one guy that you felt growing up? Obviously that you really was like, all right, this is why I want to do this. Is this guy?
Jim Carrey, big influence. Robin Williams, huge influence.
People don't realize Jim Carrey's stand-up comedy back in the day, the early 90s, his stand-up comedy was hilarious. I loved watching that stuff back in the day with his long hair and his bright patterned shirts. And he was just as crazy and he has that comedy where it's real body oriented and movement oriented, and that literally is one of my favorites as well.
You know who mine was? Howie Mandel. I went to go see him when he was big, and that's my humor.
Nice.
Stupid, made up right on the spot, and I can tell you just made it up kind of humor. And I love comedians. I think I find laughter is therapeutic. Me and my wife were talking about that. Do you find yourself using laughter, or jokes or everything like that? Is that how you deal with everything, or is that separate in your life?
Yeah, that's definitely how I really, times are just, especially with the whole cancel culture, and I love how Dave Chappelle, I don't know if you heard one of the
I watched that. Yep.
One of the Wayne's brothers say like he freed the slaves, and by that comedians, like I always said whatever, like I'm just not gonna, if you want to talk about it, I'll put you to the side and I will up you. Like I will, either you're gonna get it or you're too emotionally invested in something that's wrong.
It's comedy.
And I try to explain it to people, like you're emotionally invested into this, which I'm all about. We all have a common ground. Like at the end of the day, we all need 8 hours of sleep and food. So it's like that's enough for me to just be like, okay. And I look at everyone as children. Like I see people like that's somebody's kid. So I tend to look at people that way. So like I'll if you just take politics out of it, if you just took politics out of it, it's like just unveiling something. And you can just look at someone and they'll say, oh, well, you can't make fun of this and you can't make fun of that, which in the beginning the improv was like, if you went to LA or New York, they'll tell you the only thing you can't joke about was homeless people and AIDS. And some people did, and they said unless you yourself was homeless or had AIDS. Well, the reason for that was these people are down on their luck. You're just kicking them while they're down. But anything is funny if you do it right.
If presented in a proper way.
If it doesn't come out maliciously. So I'm just, I had somebody approach me and, they were and some comedy is birthed through conversation. My buddy wants to do stand-up, and I says, take any story, write something that happens to you, and then over-exaggerate it. So this just came up. We were at a counter, and we were just eating and having breakfast. And, the whole COVID, obviously being a hot topic, that came up. And I says, well, that's no different than the flu. It's nothing to worry about. I'm like, they put a clicker on the news. That's it. You're just watching this button, this number go up. So not only did the CDC admit that their testing was the majority of it was wrong. So where somebody may have passed away of a heart attack, then they'll say they had COVID and it was a heart attack the whole time.
Right.
So they say there's 700,000 deaths. So at the counter, I'm like, well, women cause 6.6 million car accidents a year and nobody's taking their keys away. And they just were just like dumbfounded. They're like, oh my God. Like they're just like looking at me. And I was just like, if you want to throw numbers, I mean, I'm well versed in like reading and being informed. And that's what keeps me confident and emotionally sound. Like, hey, it's just what you invest in. You're invested in the media right now. So I tend to make fun of the media.
Yeah.
So I don't go after, Republicans or Democrats. Everybody's right in their own thing, and then everybody's wrong in their own way. So at the end of the day, if we just do right by one another, it'll all work itself out. But
I get that, because a lot of people have said, why don't you do some politics, like some real politics on your show? And I'm like, because you're not going to like what I say.
Yeah.
You're not going to like it, because I got something to say about all of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And you're putting a narrow gap on who's going to actually appreciate it, or who's going to actually. You're just focused on one lane. Then you're not actually trying to grasp everybody's. And the one thing when you said cancel culture, this is me coming from a guy who enjoys it. Comedy to me is any stand-up comedy, or even acting comedy. That's the exemption. That's they're there to push the boundaries. It's not always going to land. They're gonna say things that aren't politically correct. They're gonna say things that offend somebody. But it's a comedy show. We're trying to make you laugh. We're trying to make you enjoy your time. We're not trying to offend people.
And I don't get easily offended. It's like when we just did a podcast this morning. So I was telling the people, I love Tom. Tom is funny. And I was like, Tom can crack on me, and I can take it. Tom can crack on me being Hispanic without throwing in the wrong ethnicity. He could actually crack on me for being Puerto Rican, and he'll hint the Puerto Rican things that I got nothing to say. You know what I mean? You're right.
But then when it comes to the military lane, I have to stay in my lane and let the military guys do their military thing, because I don't have that right.
If you're going to crack on me for being Puerto Rican. You know what I mean? I'm not Mexican. I'm not Cuban. You know what I mean? Crack on me for being Puerto Rican. Those are the jokes that I love, especially somebody that when they're talking to you, like, you definitely came from Lorraine. you definitely came from Lorraine, because you're Puerto Ricans.
No, and I like he said, we've known each other for many years, and I love this guy. I mean, I wouldn't even let nobody say anything bad about him. And but it's funny, because like people have, whether they're overweight or they have a gap or they have a unibrow. Sometimes, you make fun of that person, and within the line, like if you know somebody, like I'm not going to go up to a stranger and just start pointing and laughing, it's just, but at the end of the day, they have if they have this sense of insecurity about it, subconsciously or consciously, it's like, that's it. Mm-hmm. You made fun of them. Your friends, your family, they may have made fun of you, and then at the end of the day, it's like, that's it. Mm-hmm. I can still eat at the same table. It's like, yeah, man.
We talk about the next topic.
We could talk about something else. We just made fun of. We got rid of the elephant in the room, and it's funny, and you just let it go, and it's just like, oh, that's it. Yeah. Because then people think that a lot of times somebody makes fun of you, they don't like you. At the end of the day, a bully just wants attention. Mm-hmm. Just give them the right attention. Sometimes it comes with a punch in the mouth, and then you pick them up. You're like, you're good, bro. Like, get you some ice and some water. Let's go get some coffee. Yeah, I can't tell you how many of my best friends we got into a fight. Like we that's how we met.
Yep.
We got into a rumble, and then next thing you know, we're playing video games next to each other. Like, I'm gonna kick your butt.
Hit you with another one.
Yeah.
How did you do with COVID? How did COVID, that whole thing last year with the lockdown and everything like that? How did that affect you in your job?
Well, weird thing is I went through like 7 jobs. I went from one job to another, and some stuff I got like certificates in. So I educated myself, got to spend more time at home, and taught my kids. Like I picked up some side jobs myself. Mm-hmm. So I cut down trees, I stained a deck, I painted, burnt units.
No, I meant as far as comedy. I mean, how were you dealing with that? I mean, were you able to go out?
Well, and then in that aspect, a lot of clubs were closed.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is, because some of them are closed, picking up some side jobs helped because, I'm a working comedian, so I get paid. I bring in some of that little bit of that extra income. But the coolest thing was just being invited to underground shows. Like, it was private. Like, I didn't put it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. These people were just like, hey, we're going to have 100 people. And sometimes there was police officers there. Like, nobody, they were just like really like, hey, doctors, lawyers, we're like, we got this. Like, you're fine, just come on out. And then we just went, did the show, had a great time. And it was just weird. It was fun. It was fun to be invited. It was fun to be trusted. And it's just sitting there like it just, you watch these Nazi movies and people are hiding and doing stuff. It just really makes you think. It's like, I don't want to say that we're in these times compared to then, but
But I never thought about underground comedy show. You know what I mean? Like, that's cool.
Listening,
I didn't even know that existed.
Listening to one of the guys from New York, one of the stand-up comedians from New York, he said one of the coolest moments was what you just mentioned, was the comedians would get together without saying anything, and there'd be like a 3-comedian rotation for that show, and they would all show up to this building, and they'd walk in through the back door, up a set of stairs, out the back side, and up to the rooftop, because no one was checking the rooftops, and here they are having stand-up comedy shows in New York on rooftops.
Wow.
And he felt like he was part of this group that nobody knew about. They're so used to promoting your shows. Everywhere you go, come see me, and now you're not saying anything, and you're showing up to a rooftop, and there's a crowd of people waiting to hear you.
That's like a speakeasy during the Prohibition times. You know what I mean?
Yes,
That's what it is.
exactly.
Pull this little book, and the whole door opens. You know what I mean?
All for laughter.
Let's go in there and laugh. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah, you gotta love a comedian. When you're going to a show, you're going expecting like, this guy's going to crack me up, or this person's going to make me laugh. But it is. I'm going there. I want to hear some stupid.
Especially during those times.
Yeah.
Where you really need it.
I want to forget life and laugh, even if it means you cracking on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But just don't stay there too long. Move to the next
For
person.
sure. And I'm with you on that one. I've seen some comedians try to bully some people. And the guy gets up and fixes his tie, and he's like, all right, I'm going to leave you alone. Like, you should have left him alone.
That was about 3 jokes too many.
Right. Yeah. I think there's definitely a cap on that because you don't know him, So I did a show in the prison, in Grafton Prison.
Oh, okay.
So I did 2 shows there, and they just loved me, and there was a big guy there. So I went in on him, and I was like, all right, I'm going to leave you alone. And then he laughed, and he's just like sitting there. He was eating, and his shoulders went like this, so his mouth didn't open because it would have went everywhere. But it was just fun. It was like, all right.
And one of my favorite things, and like even today, today is making fun of yourself tends to get a lot of jokes, a lot of laughter as well. So like we talk all the time. I say really dumb things a lot, and they're not like dumb as in I'm dumb. Dumb as in like my brain doesn't process the sentence coming out. You know what I mean? So I'll ask a question, and it'll just be and we laugh about that more than a punchline joke. It's more of, man, look how stupid I was in this moment.
Yeah, actually, after every shoot, it's like we should keep the camera running because we just sit there and laugh at the dumb things we did during the show. Because for me, the hardest part of this whole thing is that intro.
Yeah,
I have a hard time with it. That's when I get nervous. But once we get talking, it gets.
That's exactly how I feel. Like before, it's
on
like
stage.
That.
Yeah,
exactly.
And people said, write it down and do this and put a board up. I was like, I don't think that'll help. I think I'm always going to be that nervous.
It's just that initial start. Once we get started, it's all good. And then mine's the question. So like I have a question in my mind, but getting it to come out correctly, that's why going on stage with a joke, man, that would be so. I would be thinking of every single word I have to process in my mind to go through, and then now I'm just standing up on stage talking stiffly.
And then I always forget half sentence. You know how I am. I'll start a sentence and then just walk away, and people hate that. And I'm like, I just totally forgot what I was talking.
Yeah, you're like that movie that never. I went to sleep halfway through it, and now it's no longer on Netflix. It's like, where?
3 times the conversation, John will go, I don't know where I was going with that. Like, all right.
I just forget.
And that's natural. There's people that deal with that, so they I can relate to John. So it's like Bill Burr talked about how he was like, you ever take a shower and then you're just sitting there? He's like, I'll jump in the shower and I'll just be like, like he'll make a noise because of he'll think of something he did that was stupid or said, and his wife's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just stubbed my toe." She's like, "Again?" Like every time he showers, it's always like, I said that or I did that. And it's just like so funny. I'm like,
we ended a podcast, the Zoom podcast. For those that have watched it, they know which one I'm talking about with Perilla and I. And it ended. And as it's ending, I look to the camera and I say, "Thanks. It was good seeing everybody." And I still to this day, I showed up with him in the first hand. It's good seeing everybody. Although I see it, and as soon as we done recording, I'm sitting there kicking myself in the ass. Like, what if
I don't see
what is
anyone
that?
here.
What is, good seeing everyone? Who am I?
Are you in a live studio audience?
Yeah.
Where's this taking place?
Yeah, I wanted to go over. You have this flyer here. We're actually trying to put this show out before October 30th. You know, you have something big coming up, and I think that. Actually, I don't know what day that is. Is that a Saturday?
Saturday, the last Saturday of the month.
So we're trying to get this out
25th.
the 25th.
Yes.
So we'll get this out that Monday before that.
I have a good 4 days of playtime before the Laugh Out Lorraine comes
Yeah, I
to
wanted
town.
you to plug this Laugh Out Lorraine. It's Iron Management Entertainment Laugh Out Lorraine comedy show. So tell us a little bit about this. What do you got going on with this?
Yeah, so October 30th, it's one of the hottest shows that, as far as Laugh Out Lorraine goes. I mean, everyone comes out October 30th. We generally get like 300 people. Half the people dress up, and the other half don't, and it just works. You know, some people are like, "Oh, I'm just gonna come out, enjoy a good comedy show." All our shows begin with a buffet. The doors open anywhere in the wintertime when it starts to get dark sooner. We open the doors at 7. In the summer, we open the doors at 8. So the comedy show kicks off. So if we do a 7 o'clock show, the doors open at 6 o'clock. We have a buffet, so people come in. Buffet is all you can eat, $10. When you walk in, everyone always says, "Oh, I feel like I'm at a wedding." It's just so nice. It's just so set up beautifully. So they get their seats. A lot of people tend to reserve tables. So we normally don't even sell tickets. We sell tables. So we normally, if you have a business or anything of that nature, we put a little 8x10 display that says reserved for whatever. If you want to put, family last name, then it'll say reserved for so-and-so family or reserved for this business. So a lot of people like that. They, I like promoting everyone. So that's another avenue that I can take. 7 o'clock, comedy show starts. It usually runs for about a good hour and a half. So I host it pretty much every time. Then we have a feature act that does about 15 to 20. Then we have a headliner that does about 45 to an hour. So then after the comedy show, there's 4 tables up front that we move. The DJ plays music. Dance floor is wide open. People are dancing, having a good time. Other people are in the back. Since this place is massive, they just network.
Okay.
So I love introducing people like, "Hey, you got to meet so-and-so. You got to meet so-and-so." One of my sponsors is Stephen Palins. I know you mentioned you know him. He is a mortgage lender, so there was a guy that does real estate. He says, "Hey, can you introduce me to your sponsor?" I'm like, "Sure." So I brought him over, and all the sponsors are great. They're all.
And it seems like it's more than just a stand-up comedy. It seems to be a full event. It's a dinner, comedy, dancing, like you said, networking. That seems to be the place to be on October 30th, huh?
Yep, and we try to do it every 6 to 8 weeks because I'm still on the road. So I black out that weekend whenever I put the show on. So this was another, I bought my house just up the hill from here. So it's close to home. I'm bringing entertainment. Everyone asked me to do something locally. So I says, fine. So this is on a professional level compared to like an open mic or something of that nature. And I love, people want to come out and laugh. People love to eat, and people love to dance. So I just took the 3, put it together, and
Laugh Out
it's
Lorraine.
just working. It's just working. Laugh Out Lorraine just really took off on its own. We started in a room that fit 150 people. We sold out. We did that twice. The third time, I says, "Hey, I need somewhere bigger," and the lady said, "We also catered to Antlers." And that's exactly what I had in mind. Like I pictured it, I said, "Man, if I can do a show at Antlers where it's comedy and dancing." And she said that, and it just was happening. It's like, wow. It's like the universe was just answering me. It's like, "Yep, we got you, buddy."
Yeah, that's awesome. Good. Well, I really appreciate it. And Tom, you have any more questions, or you?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm really proud of this man. I told John this story before we started. The lengths this guy will go for a laugh, to me, was what made him jump up in my mind to number one. We were probably 17, 18 years old, 19 years old. We had a little practice spot down right across the street from the Palace where all of that was going on. And we would go to upstairs and we would walk up there, and we were supposed to be there at midnight or whatever. We wouldn't show up till later because we were young, dumb kids, and going to practice for a band that my friends were in a band. And this guy falls out of the ceiling in a ninja suit to scare us. And we're like, what are you doing? How long have you been up there? He's like, 45 minutes. Where are you guys been? And we're like, I don't know if I would have sat up there for 45 minutes for that joke.
There, yeah.
So I always appreciated you've always made everybody laugh. You've always been, a stand-up guy. So I just wanted... You were the first one I thought of when we started this. This is who I thought of to bring on this.
Yeah, he was the first one. You were the first one. He said, "I want to do this one here." Where can people find you? Are you on Facebook, or what social medias do you have?
Yeah, I appreciate it. We're Angel Isaac, so that's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's Angel Isaac LOL. So you'll find me on there because Angel Isaac was already taken by some punk rock band. And
what a dumb name for a punk rock band too.
Yeah, I must have protested. Yeah. But yeah, so you can find me there. Laugh Out Lorraine. We're getting ready to launch the website, and Iron Management Entertainment is putting it on. So I'm not just booking. I do the Laugh Out Lorraine under the umbrella of Iron Management Entertainment, but people reach out to me like, hey, can you do a show here? And I'm booked, but I have friends that are funny comedians. Obviously, I'm booking them for my shows. Yeah. So then I can book them for that show. So now I'm running it as a comedian and as a manager. So I keep my friends working. A lot of them, weren't working, especially after the whole COVID thing. And so now they're, they appreciate me more. They're working, and I love to see them make people laugh even when I'm not there. It's like, hey, how was the show? Both reviews. The comedians, hey, they took care of me, great venue. Then the venue tells me, hey, great comedian, very professional, and it's just taking off, just slowly growing.
Yeah, I agree with that. You being very professional, because it's tough, to commit to something like this. We're just starting, you know what I mean? But you're definitely committed to what you do, and I'll be putting up there, towards the end, I'll be putting up all your information, everything like that. But and
I hope you guys can make the show. You're have a great time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I just realized Laugh Out Lorraine is LOL.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
57 minutes in. That's how, 2 weeks of playing to 57 minutes in.
When he said it, I was like, oh, that's what's going on in my head. So I totally didn't hear anything else he said, because I was like, I'm so dumb. You know what I mean? So, no, but Angel, I appreciate it, and I wish you all the luck and all the success. And if it does come, then it didn't come. How do you say that? You earned it.
You earned it.
You worked for it. You earned it, because it's just by this little bit of talk, it's not like overnight, somebody handed you something here and you're lucky. No. But that makes it good. So when you do make it successful, you can say, I earned it. I mean, there are times like I drove to Chicago in my car, in the middle of a
ice storm.
And so, I it's very cool. I'm very honored you came, and I appreciate it very much. And I hope everybody enjoys the show, and we put it out there, and they should look you up.
I appreciate it. I'll definitely promote it. Kudos to you guys. And, I know the podcasting isn't easy. And I get it. I get the work that goes into it. And people don't see you guys editing it. They just think, like, press play on the camera and everything just chops itself up. It's like, no. And I love your bloopers, by the way. I love that.
We actually have talked about doing more of those, because everybody seems to love those. And we have a lot of them.
Yeah, that was actually my wife. She said, "Don't take that out. Leave that in there." Yeah, because we have a lot. You know what I mean? And I said, I'm going to leave that in there.
No, they're fun, because people don't see that. People don't see. We had a great show, and people didn't know that the one show I was at the door, like, this guy tried to cut, because everybody comes in dressed up, and this guy wanted to come in his pajamas, and I'm like, nah, dude. I said, you know what? I'll save you 2 tickets. You don't even have to pay for them. Like, just go get dressed and come back. And he was insisting on coming in, so we had to kick him out. I had the police come. Nobody knew. the show was just going on beautifully, and I'm thinking he's like, why do you get to tell me how to dress? And I'm like, dude, the mayor's right there. There's the chief of police. Like, there's a judge right there. Like, what are you thinking? So we get good people that come in. So I want everybody to have a good time. And we have a professional photographer from On Point Photography. Rick Matos takes off. So everybody loves those photos. And, I've had people try to steal my show. People don't understand that. And people don't understand the hustle and the people that just try to and they have nothing better to do. And I still am like, just come to the show, have a good time. I don't care what you say about me. This is for the community. And we sold tickets from Pittsburgh all the way to Toledo.
Wow.
People drove more than an hour and a half to be to these shows, and there's a reason for that. So we're just going to keep getting bigger and better.
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it. We're going to wrap it up here.
Yeah.
And look him up, Angel Isaac. I'll put up all his information there. So that's about it. All right. Thank you very much. See you guys later.
Peace.